Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio, live, of course, Studio A, Revolution Radio. Good morning, everybody. And TraceElementsRadio.com, where I suggest you come and look today because we have a big topic. I wanted to introduce you to the Djinn. It'll sound odd considering all the important things going on. But there is a very interesting idea coming from our Muslim brothers and sisters about this time, this age of the Dajjal. It goes with the Antichrist theory. But some of the people that are looking at these things are looking at it more as a time and a series of events, rather than one guy comes down, he's the bad guy. We'll go to the Djinn in depth later today if we have time, because it has to do with radiation and change. Verses from the Quran and the Hadith show pretty much across the board that the jinns were created of fire without smoke. Now, according to Ibn Abbas, the expression without smoke means the end of the flame. Other scientists looking into this think the expression means the purest of fires. What's important to know, quite simply, is that the Djinn were created of fire, and then, therefore they have a constitution different than us. They are different than us. Also in their myths, and we'll go into this if hopefully we'll have time, in their midst, that they were here before us, that they actually, this black stone, people going around and around and around, that was theirs. That was pre-Adam, that they were pre-Adam. Why did these things matter? With all the stuff going on right now, why should this matter to me at all? We have to look at the genetic chimera events. Again, this is the Djinn story. And this is on, actually today, these articles I put up today, there's a lot. There's a lot of them. So, take a look when you get a chance. It's a theory I told you about, but it still kind of goes with this. All the jumping jack flash events. All of these things are kind of running together, because there is a fever rising here on this planet. Dangerous levels of methane and hydrogen sulfide gases are pluming into the atmosphere right now. Evidence is everywhere. I know some people still don't believe in global warming. Maybe they haven't gone outside. Or maybe they live further south and they don't see what we see. There's a book called Fever Rising that, if you have a chance to look at, I think it'll convince you. Because you've been told carbon dioxide is a threat, but the game changer, the real one, is hidden from you. The world's governments, the mainstream media, silent on what is truly threatening our existence. These changes, these dangerous gases, these methanes, these hydrogen sulfide. Again, the book I'm recommending, Fever Rising, explores who, what, when, where, why, how this is all currently happening, worldwide scale, changing everything, breaking down the role of what these gases play, where these gases come from, what's going on right now. So it goes into detail, looking at the evidence, the causes, the symptoms, and why the rapid escalation in intensity, frequency, has everything to do with global warming. It includes the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the sinkholes, the landslides, the extreme weather conditions that are happening right now in front of your face. So as the Earth's protective ozone layer is friggin' dissolving, it's dissolving, and especially triggered by the hydrogen sulfide onslaught, RNA, DNA is being damaged. It's becoming hole-ridden, fragmented like the planet. So as a consequence, it appears that Mother Nature has an interesting trick up her sleeve. She can patch genetic holes with genetic information from passing viruses or bacteria, probably viruses, but more, which may contain genetic information from a different species. This is the genetic chimera event. As a result, it's a blend of two species. For example, mermaids, human fish chimera, minotaurs, human cow chimera, satyrs, human goat chimera, werewolves, human wolf chimera, Bigfoot, human bear chimera, so on and so forth. This has probably occurred throughout all of history, at some level, perhaps very low. These are not myths, but they are forming the basis of many myths, many legends. Now that we're being backed into increasing levels of radiation, this process is simply becoming more commonplace. This is an important addition to evolutionary theory, potentially far-reaching consequences, because not all chimeras will involve human component, of course. I just mention them because I find them interesting. In that new species with near human, or even better than human, intelligence were result. Case in point, on the 16th, a strange creature looks like a legless crocodile with a dolphin head washes up on the shores of Australia. Been called an ugly dragon looking thing. It's been called all kinds of things bizarre. I have lots of images of this. Again, there's another one. I'll put one in the room, but if you go to the genetic chimera event, explaining what I mean, what this could possibly be, you can see it. Also, there was another two-headed cow-born, Djinn, China, again 2 days ago. If it was just these events, of course, I would just let them pass by. But these kind of things have been happening over and over and over again, as we've spoken of before, of course. The viruses that are happening to us right now, these things are causing a trigger. And there is more going on, of course, than just that's on the planet. I want to go back to a couple things in January before I talk about what's happening now. Again, because I just went 2 days ago. A huge amount of earthquakes striking in the middle of the ocean, Tanzania, as a matter of fact. And you can look at, again, from today, 2016, January, other stories of interest. Magnitude 5.8 earthquake strikes in the ocean near New Zealand. A lot of these are happening in the ocean. What about Europe? Europe weather, as in this warm spin, is putting nature into a tailspin, basically. Daffodils out in London, plum trees blossoming in Milan, asparagus tips are pushing through the soil in eastern France. Across Europe, unseasonably warm weather has left the nation, well, the natural world, in a spin with plants, insects, animals, convinced spring is just around the corner. Drought, of course, hitting in Colombia. Rivers drying up overnight. Forests on fire. Heavy rains, flooding in the U.S. Blizzards brought on by something called Goliath that killed 30,000 cattle in Texas. I have links. Mysterious holes again. Well, and these ones, the hole punch clouds appearing all over Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama. Another chimera event, that's what I'm calling it. A woman beat a DUI charge. She proved that her body is now a brewery, because there's a new syndrome now. So this drunk driving charge against a woman dismissed. She proved, her doctors proved, that she has this rare condition called auto brewery syndrome. This is not an isolated event. It is happening in increasing levels across the planet. Physically, our bodies are changing. Now, the events, the earthquakes near New Jersey, the Doomsday Volcanoes going on. The next one, as a matter of fact, could kill 1 million people in one go. And it looks like these events are very, very, very close to happening. Because you just worry about the collapsing economy, terrorism, wars, rumors of wars. Paying attention to what appears to be an increase in volcanic activity across the planet, because there's a 5 to 10% chance that within, they say, at most 80 years, but it looks like the next 80 days will be telling. One of these eruptions, just one of them, will kill millions of people, poison our atmosphere beyond imagination. Even worse than our activity could possibly do, as bad as it's been in 1,000 years. And no one is yet making any plans to deal with these possibilities, other than quietly all of these laws being passed. When I told you about what Obama did in the latest executive order, they are meeting, they're talking about this. There are things being said. But one thing is for sure, that the Earth actually has a volcano season, and we're in one. A recent study of what a volcano season really looks like on planet Earth means it lasts 300 years. Scientific report. Oh, and yesterday, if you have a chance, I have found the WikiLeaks of scientific papers. So please go and check out yesterday if you want to know nerdy stuff on the planet. I've got your place. So anyway, experts from the European Science Foundation concluded large volcanic eruptions pose a risk to survival. Greater, in fact, than any asteroid collision, any human activity leading to climate change, any nuclear war, anything like that. And such an eruption would be of similar size to the explosion in Indonesia, 1815, which killed around 100,000 people at the time. Another that hit Iceland, 1783, that killed around 10,000 people, spewed large amounts of sulfuric aerosols, ash, other gases into the atmosphere, causing one of the most important climatic, socially repercussive events the last millennium. In Iceland, an estimated 25% of the population died in the famine that caused, and from the fluorine poisoning after the fissure eruptions ceased. 80% of the sheep, 50% of the cattle, 50% of the horses died because of dental and skeletal fluoritis from 8 million tons of hydrogen fluoride that was released. The resulting famine that afflicted Egypt, actually in 1784, nearly caused 1/6 of the country's population to die. Great Britain, in the summer of 1783, was known as Sand Summer because of the ash fallout, and an estimated 25,000 people died due to breathing problems. Extreme weather hit much of Europe, North America, Gulf of Mexico for several years in the aftermath of that eruption. The year following that, the Tambora eruption, it was known as the year without summer, but with higher populations, dependence on global travel, interdependence on food chains, our ridiculous way of farming, our ridiculous way of sharing, our ridiculous way of over-polluting, over-fishing, over-killing, over-technologies, unsustainable technologies. A similar eruption in a similar location, far more dire consequences, extreme geohazards, reducing disaster risk, increasing resilience. Experts warned last year in a study that did not elicit much media coverage that preparations for such an event are inadequate, sometimes entirely non-existent. Although in the last few decades earthquakes have been the cause of fatalities, damage, the main global risk is large volcanic eruptions are less frequent, and people don't pay enough attention to it. We're looking for the big things. We're looking for what? We're looking for triggers of events that will have to do with money, will have to do with fracking. But humpback whales are mysteriously not showing up near Hawaii when they're supposed to be here. Quote from the area: one theory was that something like this happens as whales increased. It's a product of their success. That's ridiculous. Whales are doing so great that they're disappearing. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Much simpler explanation would be that they're missing because they're dead or dying. As with the humpback whales that have been recently washing ashore dead around the world in the last couple months. Whoever came up with the theory that they're just sitting in some cave somewhere humping, I'm not buying it. And obviously, people haven't been paying attention, the ones who could actually do something to all the dead whales around the planet. Like the biggest whale die-off ever recorded just 6 weeks ago in Chile, where 337 whales were found dead. Cyclones threatening Fiji. Now again, this is just from January. 7 feet of snow. Closed roads in Pakistan. Unprecedented 7 feet of snow in one snow event. Now the earthquakes, the volcanoes spewing lava, the heat wave in Western Cape, so South Africa, drought in Zimbabwe, cattle's dying by, it sounds like, hundreds of thousands. That volcano, Fuego, I think I'm saying that right, gushing lava, spewing ash, 23,000 feet into the atmosphere. So know that when these go off, it's hitting the atmosphere. It affects all of us. Rains and floods all over the world. State-owned airport operator, this is in Indonesia, said they had to shut down because of, again, volcanic ash from another mountain, Mount Suyupan, dangerous. Earthquake, again, magnitude 5.8. Remember, they had to lower the earthquake values. I guess that's so you won't notice it. We have magnitude 5.1 earthquake striking near a nuclear plant in North Korea when they were doing a nuclear test. Awesome. Now, with all of the major things coming out, I'm bringing this up because these things are not being shown in front of our face by accident. A NASA scientist, and yes, I have a link, and you really need to look at this. This is under January Other Stories. Says there is actually someone else on the moon. Now, this isn't one of the NASA said ones that NASA never said it. This one actually is a NASA scientist that is saying somebody's there. Because we live in a strange world. Neil Armstrong said that once. Great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who remove one of the truth's protective layers. Fast forward to right now, and the number of people becoming aware of the fact that not all that goes on behind the scenes is ever made public. This isn't the fantasy stuff, this isn't the fun stuff, this isn't the pretend stuff. This is precisely why the Freedom of Information Act was created. It's a federal freedom of information law that allows for full or partial disclosure of previously unreleased information, documents controlled by the U.S. government. Know that every government has these things. There are, of course, still obstacles in the way of transparency because they don't want you to know. And this has become more evident lately with the revelations, I guess, of WikiLeaks, of Edward Snowden, who's getting his crap beat out of him as we speak. The problem goes much deeper, though. Do you know that the U.S. government classifies roughly 500 million pages of documents every single year? This is completely a separate subject or a separate topic in itself, and if you're interested in learning more about this, check out the link I have called Black Budget. And again, it's in today. NASA. Here's what they're saying about the moon. And when I find a credible link, not just so-and-so said they saw an alien and they were probed, but like a real friggin' guy. When multiple scientists that actually worked for NASA have made shocking claims. George Leonard, NASA scientist, real guy, and a photo analyst who obtained various official NASA photos of the moon, many of it which he's published through his book called, okay, he's not clever, he's clever. Well, he's smart, but he's maybe not clever. His book's called Somebody Else is on the Moon. But you have to love how he's holding no punches and just saying it. Although the photos are small in size, resolution not up to today's standards because they didn't want them to be. You know, when they allegedly sent the first guys to the moon, we had color film, except they decided for the most expensive trip we've ever taken to use something cheap and crappy, which tells me their photos are BS. But anyway, they show details of original plants that were huge. And while Leonard published the identifying code numbers of the photos in his works to back up their source, we still can't say for sure 100% that they're real. And their poor resolution makes things worse. Except to me, I think the poor resolution shows me they're the real thing. Far more compelling though, even more than the photos, are his statements about what was found on the moon. Now, according to his verified NASA credentials, Leonard was not the only one with a credible background trying to tell the truth regarding the moon and the photos that were taken from the Apollo missions. Here's a quote. "Ladies and gentlemen, my government, NASA, which many of us in the United States say stands for never straight answer, proceeded to erase 40 rows of film of the Apollo program." Now, I told you last year that they said they lost those films. He's saying straight out erased. The flight to the moon, the flight around the moon, the landings on the moon, the guys walking here and there. They erased, for God's sakes, 40 rows of film of those events. Now we're talking about several thousand individual frames that were taken, that the so-called authorities determined that you did not have the right to see. They were disruptive, socially unacceptable, politically unacceptable. I've become furious. I'm a retired command sergeant major. I was never famous for having a lot of patience. So the quote that I just read you is from Bob Dean, who was speaking at a conference in Europe. Bob is a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major, and he served as the Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe shape of NATO and intelligence analyst. When it comes to the UFO phenomenon, we now have public disclosure, thousands of documents, along with hundreds of credible witness testimonies. But that is a separate topic. There is a link you can look at. I have to. So, it's also important to note that the Russian government recently called for an international investigation into the U.S. moon landings regarding the disappearance of film footage from the original landing, 1969. They are also referring to their approximately 40 kilograms of lunar rock that was attained during multiple missions between 69 and 72. Leonard argued that NASA knew about extraordinary and extraterrestrial activity on the moon. It would be extraterrestrial from not happening here. So, it doesn't mean that it's just ETs. It could actually be the space traveling Nazis. Could be the ancient us. Could be anything. But something's up there. NASA's attempt to hide that fact. He says he's not the only one saying this. Because you can read the books, read the lore, start to understand what's going on. Because there is no doubt that we are being visited by something. And it's not coming to pick you up. So whatever it is coming to grab us and anal probe some of us, they don't want us. They're not taking us. Yeah, they take us up maybe in their ships and mess with us and leave us here. They want nothing. They're leaving our asses, basically. So the universe that we live in is much more exciting and complex and far-reaching than we've been told. And I also have a clip of Dr. Brian O'Leary saying pretty much the same thing. That something is going on in the moon. That the moon is changing recently. The moon actually has atmosphere now, the beginnings of it. And yes, there's a lot of interesting stuff in Japan's JAXA footage of the dark side of the moon. China's new footage of the moon, which is incredibly in detail, like roads going from crater to crater, probably to mine water and other things, rectangular buildings, stairs, etc. This stuff looks like stuff that humans would build. And that's probably part of the plan B. Human race can continue after all the people of Earth are dead. Scientists just coming out that they have found the source of gravity. Gravity itself. That they have just found it. He's discovered how the universe works. And although throughout history, modern scientists have theorized about the existence of dark energy, the ether, the unknown, a substance that, if it exists, envelops and enfolds everything. All space, all reality, all time, ourselves, ether, has been theorized to be a substance which is the conduit for life-giving force. The force of the universe could be the plasma, could be the GANs that Cash is talking about. And yet physicists throughout the years have argued. Can't quantify it, can't find it. In an unpublished paper entitled Man's Greatest Achievement, Nikola Tesla described the concept of ether by saying long ago he, mankind, recognized that all perceptible matter comes from a prima materia, a primary substance, something beyond conception, interesting word, filling the space, the akasha, the luminous ether, that acted upon life, giving prana, or creative force, calling into existence, in never-ending cycles, all things, all phenomenon. So I bet he wrote that after he got back from his tour in India, where he learned the lost arts. So this primary materia, the first substance, the very first ones, the beings, and this is why again I'm talking about the Djinn, the force, through or thrown into infinitesimal whirls of prodigious velocity, so moving really fast, spinning basically, becomes gross matter. The force subsiding, the motion ceases, the matter disappears, reverting to something else, something more basic. So if philosopher, chemist, biophysicist Francis V. Fernandez equates, if his new equations are correct, we may be able and are at the cusp of a breakthrough that will change the face of the world of physics, the world we live in, hopefully for the better, although I'm not feeling them right now. He's saying, by combining Einstein's theory of relativity, Coulomb's law, and Newton's law, Fernandez states that he was able to find the mass that gives and makes these energies equal. So it is a mass of ether. It is the unknown. It is the Ma. His work has actually come out with a specific figure. Do you want to know it? Doesn't matter. It's some tiny. It's 1.859222909 times 10 to the minus 9 kilogram. This is called Fernandez law. Ether mass is the lower pulsate limit of the Planck mass and the electromagnetic ratio limit. He's saying dynamic living pulsations of ether come at surprisingly not a random rate. And before you guys fall asleep and say, like, Tracey, you're making our eyes bleed, I hate you, before you say that in a whiny voice, rundown. He says that once the mass of ether is known, solving a number of unknowns in the world of physics becomes simple. Question of gravity, relativity, magnetism, indeed energy itself, becomes answerable. He says that he went on to solve tens of equations that were likewise unable to be solved. Question of gravity, relativity, according to him, once the mass of ether is known, it can be solved. This equation changes everything, fixes the problems with gravity, sums up a lot of things we could never understand. That dark matter, what we were told before, acts bizarre. It is a vacuum energy. It is the energy of space itself. It is the unknowable that we have just known. So what he's found is the cosmological constant, the number that science was really looking for. The velocity is an attribute of mass, that you cannot have the velocity of nothing. So there is nothing anywhere. There is no nothing. There's always something. So part of it is a leap of imagination. Part of it is just the science of the curious. But these things are coming out right now because things are changing really quickly. There was the strangest event that also happened in January this year. Thousands and thousands of small earthquakes struck near Vancouver, Canada. Since Christmas to the 6th of January, thousands, many you would say, but typically over a 10-day period, we would see about 200 tremors. Between January 1st and the 4th, there were 2,400. Between Christmas and the 6th, there were over 8,000. Again, heat waves in Spain, weird waves of snowballs, weird flashes of light, possibly an atmospheric flash fire or explosion over Australia. Again, strange groaning sounds heard in the sky over Morocco. Visible light spotted from a black hole by a telescope for the first time. Previous methane outgassing events dramatically, quickly changing the Earth's climate. Now this is a quote, that a chunk of sea bottom showed that the ocean, as vast as the Pacific, could warm up between 4 and 5 degrees Celsius in fewer than 40 years. Climate scientists have assumed such a phenomenon took thousands of years. So note, keep this in mind, ancient anaerobic archaea, or archaea, it just means the old little tiny things, and bacteria that could eat methane and produce hydrogen sulfide are going to love this new change. They explode in population all throughout the ocean. They spew hydrogen sulfide as they multiply. Then oxygen, using life on Earth, will be mostly wiped out, just as happened before. Also, this area that we are looking at the cores near Santa Barbara, where the waters at the bird refuge have turned pink. You remember last fall, from a purple sulfur bacteria that eat hydrogen sulfide and only exist in hydrogen sulfide rich waters. So again, we have the ticking time bomb, which is Yellowstone supervolcano. Again, they say millions, far more than that. The skies get dark. We have a friggin' apocalypse. I don't know, maybe the earth will destroy us alphabetically, because we've had major blizzards right now. Albania, Armenia, congrats, we got Zimbabwe too. As for Chimera, we have to note this. Human organs are being grown in pigs and sheep. Sheep? Yeah, probably sheep, not sheeps. Now, this is also not extrapolation. It's happening. They are gestating on U.S. research farms. So braving a funding ban put in place by America's top health agency, researchers are moving ahead. They are growing human tissue inside pigs, sheep, the goal of creating hearts, livers, other organs that are needed for transplant. The effort to incubate organs in farm animals is ethically charged. See how I didn't swear there? Because it involves adding human cells to animal embryos in ways that would blur the line between species, like in the days of Noah, perhaps. Last September, in a reversal of earlier policy. Remember, I talked about this. National Institutes of Health announced that it would not support studies involving human-animal chimeras until it had reviewed scientific and social implications. I guess it no longer cares. The agency, in a statement, said it was concerned that the animal's cognitive state could be altered if they ended up with human brain cells. So the action was triggered after it learned that scientists had already begun such experiments with the support of other funding sources, including California's stem cell agency. The human-animal mixtures are being created by injecting human stem cells into days-old animal embryos and gestating these into female livestock. So they have come out with, and there's been interviews with 3 separate teams, 2 in California, 1 in Minnesota. MIT Technology Reviews estimates 20 pregnancies of pig-human or sheep-human chimeras have been established during the last 12 months alone in the U.S. So far, no scientific paper describing the work. None of these animals. They say none of them have been brought to term, but without the papers, without even the idea of what they were being born for, we don't know. We seriously don't know. And because it's not government funded, it's privately funded, they have no obligation to tell you. So, one researcher came out in November, Juan Carlos Del Monte of the Salk Institute, showed unpublished data of more than a dozen pig embryos, all with human cells. Another from the University of Minnesota provided photographs of a 62-day-old pig fetus, in the addition of human cells appeared to have reversed an eye defect. The experiments, relying on cutting-edge fusion of technologies, including the groundbreaking stuff we've told you about, stem cell biology, gene editing techniques, modifying genes. Scientists can easily change the DNA in a pig or a sheep embryo so that genetically incapable of forming a specific tissue. Then by adding stem cells from a person, the human cells take over, forming a missing organ. Not only are scientists doing this, it's kind of looking like the planet herself is doing this. Can't be an accident that they are coming out and know there is a man, sheep, pig that was born. How can they do it? We've talked before what they were doing and why. That they know there are things going on. Oh, yeah, it's an actual thing. It's been grown. It's 3. The minute that they made an embryo born with 3 parents, they can splice in and out. Now, we also have strange events. A mysterious vortex again, January 7th, and an orb filmed over the sky of the Large Hadron Collider. Got images. Is a UFO? I don't know what it is. It could just be our skies are so electric at this point. They are having their own events. There was a cougar born with horns or teeth on its head found near Idaho. It's real. There are pictures. There was a strange empty ghost boat found circling on Lake Texoma, Texas. I talked to you before about how there will be just either deaths, especially near the water, or empty boats. Oh yeah, this lion photo is not fake. It's real. It happened. At first I'm like, it's Photoshop. Nope. We have seen multiple colored light pillars light up the skies near northern China. Light pillars filmed in Stockholm, Sweden. Strange animal attacks and behavior. Raccoons, a herd of them, or a pack of them, I'm not sure what you would call a bunch of raccoons, invaded a Chinese restaurant in the Bronx, New York. They were working together. That's another thing. Animals are getting smart. Sometimes we're seeing them smart in a way that it's unprecedented, right? Raccoons do work together and they have really cute little hands. We know this. But they invaded a restaurant. This was an attack. This was the strangest thing I've ever seen. And that's, again, in the stories of interest. We had 3 earthquakes. 3.2, 2.9, 2.6 strike within 6 minutes near Hollister, California, near the coast. Just a bang, bang, bang. Meteor fireballs increasing from nothing. Okay, I'll continue with this. Once you get up and stretch your legs, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements, live today. Of course, Revolution Radio Studio A and Trace Elements Radio. So, not only are we seeing genetic changes, yes, there are some being propelled. I'm trying to tell you and show you there's a reason for this. Because there are aggressive super rats, completely immune to poison, and not just immune to the poison, but they are feeding off the poison, becoming super-sized beasts. Like my mom told us about what happened at the research station there years ago. Now, the problem in Britain, UK specifically, but this is all across Britain, one of the rodents went for a terrier. Terriers are notoriously scrappy dogs. Tore it to shreds. They're walking across the street in daylight, and they're huge. And the problem is getting worse. Pest controllers estimate there are 100 million populations of rats in the UK, that it is stronger and is more aggressive after becoming resistant to the toxic pellets. They feed off them. They're becoming supersized. This is not just happening there. Rats have destroyed 1,200 hectares of crops in the Philippines islands, Cotabato, but they didn't eat the crops. They just tore them out. They're attacking. Then we have the Zika virus, which I'm going to hold on to. Again, strange trumpets, Netherlands, UK, Morocco. Strange trumpets, Singapore, Hungary, California. Now you have to make a note, atmospheric contamination. These problems are escalating. Strange noises in the skies escalating too. It is not a surprise to me at all. Oh, and they've just proven that humans have been in the Arctic 45,000 years ago, at least. Well, yeah. Hello. And they found bones of something else that lived. They're calling it pre-human. And the Inuit and all the people in the far north said there were other beings here. So, not a surprise. These are the ancient beings. We are meeting the ancient beings again. Is it because there has to be a certain amount of genetic strangeness? I don't know. Researchers have discovered a hormone that significantly extends your life. Fountain of youth. We contain it. Also, weird star systems just got weirder because it's happening because of a combination of things. Also, there's a great big fluffy ice cloud thing that's invisible. I love the invisible ones. It's heading towards us too. Looks a little scary. But the weirdest star in the cosmos just got weirder, and they came out and say it. Yeah, it could be aliens. So it's known as Tabby's star. KIC 8462852. It's been baffling astronomers for the past few months after a team of researchers noticed its light seemed to be dipping into, well, brightness in strange, bizarre ways. Proposed explanations ranged from cloud of comets to orbiting alien megastructures. Now, an analysis of historical observations reveals the stars has been gradually dimming for over a century, leaving everyone scraping their head as to the cause. First signs of this space oddity came from the Kepler Space Telescope, which continually watched the stars region of sky between 2009 and 2013. Most planet-hosting stars show small, regular dips in light. Their planets pass in front of them, obviously, so the light dips because there's something in front of it. The light dips because if there's something in front of this one, well, let me go back. Tabby's star dipped erratically throughout the 4 years, sometimes losing as much as 20% of its brightness, which means something crossed in front of it. It was a lot of somethings, and it was very big somethings. So September just passed. Tabitha of Yale University, who lends the star its informal name, tried to make sense of this unusual signal. Ultimately, they determined that the dust from a large cloud of somethings, they're calling it comets, except comets don't move like this. But anyway, a month after that, the star once again made headlines across the globe as Pennsylvania State University and his colleagues said alien megastructures, satellites designed to collect light from a star, could be responsible for this signal. So it's not just pulsating light, it's sending a signal. So they just said it. So the team studied the stars. They looked at data from Harvard University, an archive of digitally scanned photographic plates from the sky from the past 100 years or so to see if it behaved unusually in the past. It hasn't. Maybe when we send stuff out saying, hey, come on down, we should have had it, thought a little bit. But anyway. Saying that the star is fading, specifically between 1890 and 1989. Fading. Fading because something is moving in front of it, and is big, and it's weird. What about the alien megastructures? The idea runs with a lot of new observations that are true. What's more, such an object should radiate light absorbed from the star as heat, but infrared signals from Tabby's star appears normal. So they don't know what the dimming effect is. How the dimming effect, or how it affects the megastructure, except that it would seem to exclude a lot of natural explanations, that it can't be a comet, that there could be just more dimming events in the past. They don't know. Whatever this thing is, looks like it's powering up. So, the brutal weather changes, and of course I could do a whole thing on this. We have to go to Zika. Because know that I am not the only one seeing this. San Francisco has just announced that it actually has 2 doomsday buses for mass casualty disasters. We've had strange, outdoor, and unknown odors that are sickening people all around this planet, too. Oh, do you want to copy that link? Okay. I'll give you the link. Here, put it in the room. Yeah, doomsday buses. So know that if one city has them, probably all cities on this planet have them. The UFOs, new and stranger cattle mutilations happening. They are studying things because they know something's going on. They are making plans because they know for a fact that something is going on here. Something huge. Something major. We know for a fact chemical larvicide, not Zika virus, is the true cause of Brazil's outbreak. It's part of the genocidal Nazi effect. There's no other way to say it, really. It's the HIV, it's the AIDS, it's the weapon of war. They are now telling women on the globe, quietly, subtly, think about not having children right now. Pregnant women all over this world have been advised to take caution. They're not screaming it yet, but screaming it will come soon. The Zika virus infection linked to newborn babies with a bird defect, microcephaly, congenital condition, babies born with unusually tiny heads. This notion, though, has been challenged by a group of Argentine physicians. The group suspects that this virus is not to blame for this rise in these cases, that it is a toxic larvicide that's been introduced in Brazil's water supply purposely. Now we know for a fact that physicians in crop spray towns, it's a group, that a chemical larvicide that produces the malformations in mosquitoes was injected into Brazil's water supply 2014 to stop the development of mosquito larvae in drinking water tanks. You cannot mess with something on this level and not think it's going to find a way. So the chemical, I guess it doesn't really matter if I can say it right. I can try. Pyriproxyfen. Yeah, I think I got it. Was used in a massive government-run program tasked to control mosquito populations. It's of course manufactured by Sumitomo Chemical, a company associated with Monsanto. However, it's referred to as a subsidiary of Monsanto. So it's not Monsanto, it's just a friend of Monsanto. It's Monsanto. And if they were talking to me about this, I would slap them. So malfunctions detected in thousands. They're calling them, malformations. In thousands and thousands of children from pregnant women living in areas of Brazil. In all the places where their drinking water has been contaminated by this. It's not a coincidence. Brazilian Health Ministry injected this into reserves in one state, in that area, which does carry the Zika virus, where it's very high, of course. Now, a group of Argentinian doctors point out that during past Zika epidemics, there have not been any cases of this particular disease linked with the virus. In fact, 75% of the population in countries where Zika broke out have been affected by mosquito-borne viruses. Countries such as Colombia, where there's plenty of Zika cases, there is no case of this leaked to Zika, of this, this malformation. Colombian president announced that many of the country's citizens have the virus. Not one case of the microcephaly. Allegations, of course, have emerged. Some 3,177 pregnant women in the country are infected with Zika. But they are carrying healthy babies, healthy fetuses, and having birth to terms. Now, on its website, the Sumitomo Chemical says this poses a minimal risk to birds and fish and mammals. However, the evidence, if you read, is overwhelming. The Washington Post reported in January that they estimated 732 cases out of the 4,000 some odd Zika-related microcephaly. There we go. More than half were not related to Zika at all. So it's something else. On top of all these suspicions, WHO has been careful not to link it, the Zika and the microcephaly. Although a causal link between the infection and pregnancy and microcephaly, it is not established. It is suggestive. It is worrisome. But in the meantime, scientists are currently racing to develop a vaccine for this thing. They don't know what it does. So, after going through extreme toxicology testing, has shown no effects on the reproductive system or nervous system in mammals, has been approved, has been registered for use for the past 20 years by authorities of 40 countries. Despite long-term and widespread use, in different settings, no correlation can be made. Something's changing, don't you think? Now we have that. We have, of course, a 6.0 southeast of Indonesia magnitude. Well, it's basically southeastern Pacific rise. 6th and 7th major earthquakes that happened this month. We have a new depth of depravity. ISIS demons beheaded a 15-year-old boy for listening to pop music. Fear's growing, of course. As evidence shows, North Korea's nuclear tests will trigger a volcanic eruption, causing chaos in the Western Pacific. Not like there's been, or there haven't been enough going on there already. We have 18 dead, 50 injured in the car blast in the Turkish capital of Ankara yesterday. We're on the brink. Some people call this the brink of World War III, although I don't see that it ended at all. Too much blood in their mouth after World War II that even when officially places stood down, they kept fighting. They attacked Japan after they had stepped down. What they did to the German people, I'm sorry, no one deserves that. You can't kill to think that that's going to make it better. You can't. There's some people saying we have less than 18 days at this point to officially, they're calling it World War III. You know, the Sunni nations, it's in their interest to have Assad overthrown so they can enjoy hegemony over Syria and bring it into the Sunni sphere of influence, as opposed to Syria getting closer to Iran and their Shia version of Islam. The U.S. backed the rebels because for whatever reason they wanted Syria disabled. As they did in Iraq, Libya, pretty much every nation they've screwed up in the past decade. Not America alone, but their gang of merry men. In short, the U.S. and their allies are backing rebels who are trying to overthrow the Syrian government. The governments of the Western world are backing the bad guys. And Syria has always been a military ally of Russia. Russia has a deep water port in Syria, which is important to the Russian Navy. When it became clear to Russia that Syria was going to fall to the rebels, Russia announced that they were coming in the aid of their ally, at the request of Syria, with its permission. So the rebels, the terrorists, the accomplices, these rebels are murky as heck. They call themselves the Free Syrian Army, while others are part of the Al-Nusra Front. But the rebels are also cozy with the folks of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, outright terrorists. ISIS takes over entire regions of countries, steals the resources, uses the cash from the stolen resources to fund worldwide terror attacks. In Syria, ISIS controls the second largest city, Aleppo, and another, a smaller one, Raqqa. Aleppo was the one where they found the world's oldest Old Testament, the Pentateuch, the five. They announced they found it, and immediately the war started. It's not an accident. We have never heard of this book since then. But in Iraq, ISIS controls Mosul. These are the oil-rich areas of two countries, and ISIS has been stealing the oil. There is a drive for what's going on. The rest of the world didn't know until recently was that Turkey had been covertly working with ISIS the entire time. Turkey has been allowing literally thousands of oil tankers from Iraq to Syria to carry the stolen oil into Turkey every single day, where it is slightly refined, repackaged to look legitimate, and then sold on the cheap so that no one asks questions. This oil theft operation has netted ISIS $100 million a month easy. So Russia enters to assist their ally. When Russia entered Syria, they had two targets. The rebels were trying to overthrow the president, the legal president, Assad, and to get the terrorists. Russia has an excellent intelligence gathering system, very good spy satellites, very good SINET, so signals intelligence, which spies on electronic communications. Through these systems, Russia came to know where ISIS was operating and exactly how. Russia knows this. With Russia putting a damper on the stolen oil, cutting into profits, Turkey decided to send Russia a message. Knock it off. They shut down a Russian bomber. Turkey is not powerful enough on its own to get all up in Russia's face. So you know who they're working with. Russia may be the only one on that entire continent working for humanity, because everyone else is doing a land grab. Now, last week, Syrian forces with Russian and Iranian help encircled the city of Aleppo, Syria, because Aleppo, Syria is important. Saudi Arabia and its pals saw that Aleppo was being circled and would fall. They knew that their entire effort to overthrow Assad is doomed. Aleppo is the key. It is the rebel terrorist stronghold. And if it goes, the fight is done for the rebels. The rebels went in there, as we've talked about before, to take that place over. Kill Assad and his family. So last weekend, Saudi Arabia publicly floated the idea of sending 15,000 ground troops into Syria to fight ISIS. Everyone knows what's coming. Understand, Saudis are full of crap. They don't want to fight anybody's ISIS. They want to help the rebels overthrow Assad, because Assad is protecting the people. Turkey wants to protect ISIS so they can keep grabbing boatloads of cash, stolen oil. Nobody who mattered took the Saudi offer seriously, because everyone knows what's really going on. This did not sit well with the Saudis or the U.S. So the U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter publicly described the Saudi offer of 150,000 ground troops as a great idea that he would discuss with the allies. So Syria and Russia both read between the lines, saw the writing on the wall, so to speak. If foreign ground troops come in, it will not be to fight ISIS, it will be to support and overthrow Assad. If any foreign troops enter Syria without the permission of the Syrian government, Russia will consider that a declaration of war. These are heavy words from Russia, which is, like it or not, superpower. Yesterday, looked like this time that the troops had already begun arriving, or at least amassing in Saudi Arabia. But it was not 150,000. It was 350,000 ground troops at least. It's been confirmed that the Saudis and their allies are already transporting 20,000 tanks. Worse, 2,450 warplanes are en route to northern Saudi Arabia. The Saudis have declared the airspace in the northern section of the country closed. There are big movements going on. Of course, the Saudis are saying it's an exercise. 350,000 troops, 20,000 tanks, 2,450 warplanes, 450 military helicopters. That's one heck of an exercise. Said that the exercise would take 18 days. Putting it around, from when this stuff started, around the 28th February. When this information came out, Russia repeated a warning, don't do it. Well, yesterday afternoon, Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced he was asking NATO allies to join the U.S. coalition sending more troops to Syria. Look at a map and see how small this is. This place is. It's ridiculous. So, we are now watching World War III being put into operation. I can't believe this is taking place, but it has to be taking place for a completely other reason than what I'm telling, than just their basic warmongering, which I realize they love. They love the all steely, crashy, but this is something new. There are too many events happening. Right now, because the U.S. Supreme Court just declared that mass internment is inevitable right now. Now, referring to America's mass internment of the Japanese people, current Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia declared, "You're kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again." Scalia made these comments during a speech to students February 3rd. He was asked about the Supreme Court case of Korematsu versus United States, 1944, which involved a legal challenge by two Japanese Americans to orders to report to a mass internment camp. On appeal, the Supreme Court declared internment camps constitutional on the grounds of military urgency. Hawaii, where Scalia was speaking, was one of the many states in which internment camps had happened. Now, of course, Korematsu was wrong, Scalia said, in comments reported to the Associated Press. And I think we have reputed in a later case, but you are kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again, perhaps very soon. He later invoked the Latin expression inter arma Hinim Salant Leges. Roughly, in times of war, the law is silent. That's what's going on. The panic about war, the invasion of the Pacific, and whatnot. That's what happens. It was wrong, but I will not be surprised when it happens again in this time of war. No justification, but it is the reality. It's a reality here. His remarks took the form of nominal disapproval, of course, of the Kuramatsu case and mass internments, his shoulders shrugging at the reality of these future internments should not be taken as a serious warning. I think it should be. Now, since his arrival on the Supreme Court 1986, he has been a leading figure in the ongoing rollback of democratic and social rights. Some of the headlines or highlights of his career: Stanford versus Kentucky, 1989, upholding the death penalty for crimes committed by 16-year-olds. You must be very proud of that. Halting vote counting and installing George W. Bush as president. And Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission, 2010, removing limitations on corporate spending during elections. There is an element of arrogant pageantry and provocation in everything Scalia does, in both his official and individual capacities. 2004, Scalia famously went on a hunting trip with the Vice President, Dick Cheney, while the case involving the latter was pending before a Supreme Court in a flagrant violation of judicial ethics. And nobody cared. No one stopped him. Scalia's contempt for the principle of separation of church and state, frequently on display, as in 2012, arguing the position that our Constitution forbids anything that favors religion over non-religion. I don't know. His pronouncement on the eventuality, let's say that this is coming, borrows not from a little from fascist jurisprudence. This is saying this is what America is. And there are many saying this is what America is, not becoming, not going to happen, that this is the planet we live in right now. But again, why the ramp up? I'm thinking that the majority of people are pretty darn docile, are they not? Docile to the point of, I don't know how we're going to get any babier. We know that the great powers renounced chemical and biological warfare some 20 years ago, but never stopped experimenting. The germ warfare subjects experiments on the Seventh-day Adventist soldiers. Do you remember those? The Tuskegee syphilis experiments. The San Francisco Bay attack on the U.S. Army using Syria, Marcianus bacteria, I think. The New York City subway germ attack. Other experiments on humans, largely unknown to victims, of course, continue. We know that Soviet centers of biological warfare exist. You can be sure that similar diabolical experiments on humans continue. Fort Detrick, notorious for having engineered AIDS virus, Zika virus, at Fort Derrick, Maryland. This is a clever psy-war ploy, as always, to kill off a certain race. And to neutralize those of us who are saying essentially the same thing. AIDS and many of the viruses probably created through recombinant genetic engineering, which they are freaking coming out with, rearranging genes of 2 or more species, plant, animal, and a serial passage. So a growing of a virus in a series of generations of tissue, cultural cells, live animals, thus adapting a virus to a new species using a human tissue culture cell from a lab in the security labs of Fort Derrick. People starting and accusing, people now spreading the communist line. This is not new. But this is, again, wrapping up. When I look at the events this month, what's happened in February is insane. It's absolutely insane how fast these things are going. More mysterious explosions and smokes in subways. Just on the 16th, 2 days ago, sending people running in Queens. No explanation for this. Underground electrical explosions hitting Massachusetts. Underground electrical fire blacks out part of Britain near the coast. Metal recycling plant hit by fire. Shopping carts. Trash burn. Denver, Colorado. Denver, as a matter of fact, is just outside of a metal recycling center. Aluminum recycling plant catching on fire. This is in Tilbury, Britain. Pallet fire erupts in businesses. Fire gets huge. California. This is happening all over the world. Same thing as various underground electrical fires. Hydrogen sulfide, reactive with copper, especially electrified copper, heavier than air, so one would expect there to be a rise in underground electrical fires as atmospheric contamination intensifies. This is why things are exploding, especially apartment buildings. That's why it looks like it's a meteor, but it's not a meteor. That's why the different colors in the sky, but it's not a aurora. All vehicles are now randomly igniting firebombs that can go off at any time, whether parked, being driven. Plenty of people have lost their homes and their lives in that way. So park a vehicle near where you live at your own risk. Fires and explosions are increasing. Animal die-off, my God, 2 days ago, 2 sperm whales washed ashore near the coast of China, Nantong. Whale washes ashore dead, coastal Puri, India. 445 turtles wash ashore dead in the beaches of Mexico. So many fish dying in the waterways of Karate, Turkey, they can't count. Thousands of fish dying along Ponce River, Colombia. The increase of these things, people passing out while they're flying, too. This is going up. We talked about this years ago. Zombie files from 2 days ago. Naked. Man, 35, stabs, beats his mother to death. This man had never had even an incident in school. This is coastal Miami, Florida. Naked, guitar-wielding man, 49, goes on a rampage, smashes all the stuff, bleeds. This is Glasgow, Britain. Not drug addict. Absolutely no drugs found on him or in the system. Naked man running around 6 a.m. gets bitten by a police dog, taken in, and these guys are showing super strength. Again, animal attacks. Just from 2 days ago, lion attacks wildlife park employee. Never done it before, but animals are losing their patience with us. Crocodile attacks man in Malaysia. Elephant attacks rhinoceros, kills it. Now that's something you don't hear every day. Hazmat, New Jersey, 4 people sickened, unknown fumes in a building, no idea. No idea. Heat wave, again, South Africa, we've been talking to you about. Tropical cyclone, Wilston, roars through Tonga. Ireland experiences the wettest January in 70 years. Miami, Florida, wakes to tornado warning, wind damage, and it's very unusual. Major earthquakes triggered by a system of small faults linked along the Keystone Fault. Bright green fireball spotted in the skies, U.S. East Coast. Unknown substance found in cars dripping from the sky, apparently, in Harrison Township. It's oily. It's black. There's a picture of a guy touching it. Don't touch it. If you get black goo, don't touch the goo. Again, strange creature that I told you about, dolphin head or something. And more incidents like this. Strange. People are losing it. Animals are attacking more. I think, look at the time, jeez. I wanted to tell you about not just the strange zombie attacks, which, they're my favorite and make me laugh. They do, they make me laugh. Because they're weird. Now, at first I just thought people were, we need to put down that shit and stop smoking it. Period. But the animal attacks. Dogs, for instance. Dog kills man as a man has a seizure in his home. Dog just naps. Loyal dog. Been loyal his whole life. Dog attacks, injures 2-year-old. Face attacks. More and more of these are happening. Don't let your child get on their knees and put their face near a dog. You should never let them do that. Anyway, but animals who have never attacked are just changing. Pitbull attacks man, injures 10-year-old boy. Cops shoot the dog. Shark attacks and injures a man, but these sharks stalk him. There's this one with a mountain lion. Now again, this was January. Mountain lion attacks family dogs, one at a time, in Utah. Now the cougar was killed, but it came in, grabbed one of the dogs, left, and came back. And you might just say, the lion's stalking the area. But some of the incidences of this are weird. Some of the shark attacks look like they're hurting, that they're fighting, that they're working like a pack. They're hunting like we used to hunt. That we circle around. We always have a couple guys at the end of where you're circling and driving the animals to. They're fighting like this. Bees. The bees are really going off. Bees who have some very old DNA, like we were telling you, the first DNA. Swarms of bees, again. One attacked in a funeral procession. And in separate incidents, crocodiles attack, injuring 2 women in Australia. Separate. 5 pit bull attacks and injured 2 women, a man and a child, 4 dogs. Other dogs. These again, animals stalk them. A snake attacked. Snakes attacks are actually escalating in Victoria, Australia, in general, and warnings have been issued. Coyote attacks, killing pets. Broad daylight now, Florida. Broad daylight. Mountain lions attacks, kills pet dog on a patio in a home, Colorado. This mountain lion entered a resident's patio, killed a dog. It's odd. Do you know what I mean? This is odd. There's a swarm of bees and wasps that work together. I've never heard this before. Injured 10 people, killed 5 dogs. This is again in South Africa where they're getting that strange heat wave. That, people are just falling, dropping from it. A 2-ton shark jumped on a boat and attacked the fishermen. These are not fantasy stories. This happened. It jumped on the boat to get them. Jumped on the boat. Now, bee swarms, again, they're increasing. Coyote attacks are increasing. Some of that you would just think, we're pushing them out, we're taking over their land. Of course, those are going to happen. I have never heard of bees and wasps working together. I've never heard of a shark jumping on a boat and attacking. Animals are acting as if they're smarter. And more vicious. So again, it leads me towards chimeras. A chimera attack. Because that's weird. They're changing. And when they come out and say that, yes, we are doing experiments with animals, not all of these animals could be just released. Something isn't affecting us. We're seeing in the sky because of effects. We're seeing explosions because of effects. There are sinkholes because of effects. It's not just fracking. People would love to say it's just the government. I'm saying it can't just be the government. It can't. It can't. So again, short course. The Djinn, little known in the West, other than the little blue monster, and he's fun, and he loves you, and he's going to be your friend. The folk tales, genies and lamps and bottles, real, active in our world, powerful, masterful shapeshifters who apparently exist in a dimension parallel to ours. Humans have for millennia intense engagements with these Djinn, Djinn, who disguise themselves in many forms, different entities, in order to keep themselves and their motives hidden. We will continue this topic next week, and so I'm going to explain why this genetic manipulation and this strange changing of animals and people is happening right now in your face. Thank you very much for listening today, everyone. Have a wonderful week and weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.